My wife danced with my boss like she wanted an audience, and my coworkers gave her one. I didn't feel jealous. I felt the cold, simple click of understanding. The holiday party was supposed to be easy. 2 hours of handshakes, small talk, and pretending the year wasn't a grind. I wore the right suit, smiled at the right people, and brought Tiffany because that's what you do when you're trying to look like a stable man with a stable life. The room was loud in that corporate way. Music, laughter that came too fast, drinks poured like it was a reward for surviving spreadsheets. My team clustered near the bar. Mark Reynolds, my boss, floated through it all like a host, even though it wasn't his event. That's his style. Friendly, confident, always on. Tiffany started out fine. She hugged a few wives, complimented someone's dress, and laughed at a joke I didn't hear. Then I saw her eyes catch Mark like a magnet. It wasn't dramatic. That's the thing. It was small movements stacked into a pattern. The way she angled her body toward him instead of me. The way she leaned in when he spoke, like his words needed privacy. Mark touched her elbow while he laughed. She kept her hand on his forearm a second too long, like she was testing what the room would allow. I watched from 10 feet away, holding a plastic cup of something I didn't taste. A coworker, Jason from accounting, gave me a quick look, then looked away like he'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to. That's when irritation started to harden into something cleaner. Mark said something and Tiffany threw her head back laughing, big and bright. The laugh you save for someone you want. She didn't glance at me once to check if I was okay. That part mattered more than the flirting. When the DJ shifted into a slower song, Mark offered his hand like it was natural. Tiffany took it like she'd been waiting. They walked to the open space near the center of the room. Not a dance floor, just an empty patch where people could watch. And people did. At first it looked harmless if you wanted it to. 2 adults swaying, smiling, a holiday party cliché. Then they moved closer. Mark's hand settled low on her back. Tiffany's fingers slid up his shoulder and stayed there, relaxed, familiar. She turned her face toward his, and they spoke into each other's space like the music was their excuse. I didn't move. I didn't storm over. I didn't make a scene. I stood still and watched my wife act like my name wasn't attached to hers. A few co-workers pretended not to notice. A few did that tight smile people get when they're uncomfortable but entertained. Someone lifted a phone. Maybe for a fun party clip. Maybe for later gossip. Tiffany didn't flinch. If anything, she seemed to like the attention. Like it made her feel chosen. That's when the fuse lit. Not anger. Don't panic. Clarity. This wasn't just flirting. This was her crossing a line where everyone could see it because she believed she could. Because she believed I'd swallow it to keep the peace. Mark leaned in, said something close to her ear, and Tiffany smiled like a secret was being shared. I took one breath, slowed through my nose, and set my cup down on the nearest table. I started walking toward them. Not fast, not loud, already deciding what kind of man I was going to be for the rest of the night. I reached them with the same pace I use in meetings when someone's about to talk themselves into a mistake. Tiff, I said, just her name, calm. She turned like she'd forgotten I existed, a smile still on her face. Mark's hand slid off her back, smooth as oil. Adam, Mark said, like we were 3 friends sharing a joke. I looked at him the way you look at a man who knows better. I need my wife for a minute. Mark held up both hands. Of course, no problem. Tiffany's eyes tightened a fraction, annoyed that I'd interrupted. Not embarrassed, not apologetic, annoyed. I put my hand lightly on her elbow, not possessive, not rough, and guided her away. She followed, but her head turned once to Mark like she was making sure the connection didn't snap. Near the coat rack, she pulled her arm back. What is your issue? My issue. I kept my voice low. We're leaving. She stared at me like I just embarrassed her. The irony sat there between us, heavy and stupid. I'm in the middle of having fun, she said. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did. A couple people nearby pretended to look at the dessert table. Jason looked at the floor. That sealed it. This wasn't in my head. The room knew. I smiled at the nearest coworker, a polite mask, and said, Early morning tomorrow. Then I took Tiffany's coat off the rack and held it open. She slipped into it with the stiffness of someone being forced to behave. The drive home was quiet for the first 5 minutes. The kind of quiet that isn't peace, just pressure building in a sealed container. Then she huffed and broke it. "I can't believe you dragged me out like that." "I didn't drag you," I said, eyes on the road. "I removed you before I said something I'd regret in front of my team." "Oh my God." She laughed once, sharp. "So you were jealous." I felt the first real heat in my chest, but I kept it under control. "It's not jealousy. It's respect." She leaned back in her seat, crossing her arms like a teenager. "It was a dance. At a party. Mark was being friendly." "Friendly is a handshake," I said. "Friendly isn't you pressed up against my boss in the middle of my workplace with half the office watching." She rolled her eyes. "You're making it sound sexual. That's insane." I didn't answer right away, because if I answered too fast, it would turn into a fight. And I wasn't interested in a fight. I was interested in the truth. "What part of it looked good to you?" I asked. She blinked, like the question was unfair. "Looked good? I don't know. I was just being social." "Social doesn't mean careless," I said. "Social doesn't mean you ignore your husband." There it was, the smallest pause. Not guilt, calculation. "So this is about you," she said. "Your image at work. Your ego." My fingers tightened on the steering wheel, then relaxed. "No, it's about my dignity. Our dignity. You made me look like a fool." "Wow." She shook her head slowly. "This is exactly why I didn't want to come. You always do this. You always turn something harmless into a problem." I felt it then, that heavy drop in the gut that isn't rage. Rage is quick. Rage burns out. This was different. This was disappointment so thick it felt like grief. "Harmless," I repeated. "Yeah, harmless." She said it like a verdict. "You're acting insecure. Mark's married. It's not like anything's happening." I glanced at her just once. Her face was set, confident, like she'd already decided the story and my role in it. "If you cared how it looked," I said, "you would have checked in with me. You would have stepped back the second you noticed people watching." She scoffed. "People weren't watching." "They were," I said. Silence again. This time she didn't deny it. She just stared out the window like she was bored. That's when I understood the real problem. A respectful wife doesn't need a rulebook. She doesn't need her husband to argue her into acting like she's still part of a unit. She feels the line before it gets crossed, because she cares what it costs him. Tiffany cared what it cost her. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as it always did: warm lights, tidy yard, the life we'd built like a set. She unbuckled quickly and got out first. At the front door she turned, keys in her hand. "Are you done?" I got out, shut my door quietly, and walked up the steps. "No," I said, "but I'm done talking to someone who's pretending this is funny." Her mouth opened like she had another speech ready. Then she stopped, eyes narrowing. "Fine," she said. "Be mad. I'm not apologizing for dancing." And she went inside ahead of me, like I was the one who'd crossed the line. I stood on the porch for a second longer than necessary, breathing cold air, letting the disappointment settle into its place. Because anger still means you think something can be corrected. What I felt walking into that house wasn't anger. It was the first quiet sense that I might already be alone. I woke up before my alarm, the same way I did when a project was going sideways. Mind already running numbers. Risk, damage, containment. Tiffany was in bed beside me, scrolling. The glow from her phone painted her face blue and calm. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look up. Nothing. That word. Nothing. The favorite shield of people who know exactly what they're doing. I got up, grabbed my own phone off the dresser, and the first thing I saw was a text from Jason. "Hey man, rough night. Are you good?" Then another from Aaron on my team. "I'm sorry. If you need anything, I'm here." I didn't respond yet. I opened my messages again. More of the same. Polite sympathy with awkward edges. People trying to be human while pretending they hadn't watched my marriage become office entertainment. I tapped into the group chat I usually muted. Someone had dropped a link. A video, 30 seconds, grainy, loud music, and clear enough to see my wife wrapped up in my boss like it was normal. I watched it once, then again without sound. Not because I needed proof, because I needed to see what everyone else saw. Tiffany sat up against the headboard, still scrolling like she was checking scores after a game. She smirked at something on her screen. "You're enjoying this," I said. She finally looked at me. "Enjoying what? You're being dramatic." I held my phone up. "This." She glanced at it and shrugged. "It's just a clip. People post everything. People from my job," I said. "My coworkers. My team." She exhaled hard, irritated. "So? They need hobbies." That's when I knew she wasn't thinking about our family. She was thinking about her image, how to stay the fun one, the desired one, the one who didn't do anything wrong. Her phone buzzed again. She smiled down at it, thumb moving fast. Then she turned the screen away from me like it was instinct. I didn't reach for it. I didn't demand it. I just watched her protect whatever was on it. A few hours later, her sister Brooke called. Tiffany put it on speaker like she wanted a witness. "Adam's being ridiculous," Tiffany said before Brooke even spoke. "He's acting like I cheated." Brooke's voice came through, bright and sure. "He is being ridiculous. It was a dance. He can't control you." Then her mom, Susan, chimed in the background, apparently on Brooke's end. Men like that always make everything about themselves. I stood in the kitchen, listening to my wife recruit her jury. Not one of them asked what it did to me at work. Not one of them said, "Hey, maybe you should apologize for embarrassing your husband." They went straight to labeling me insecure, controlling, dramatic. Tiffany met my eyes while they talked, like she was daring me to object. I nodded once, slow. Not agreement, recognition. Because this wasn't about a clip anymore. It was about her building a story where disrespect was harmless, and my reaction was the real crime. And I understood something simple. If she could rewrite this, she could rewrite anything. So I stopped talking, and I started paying attention. We went to our usual place because Tiffany insisted on it. "Let's just be normal," she said, like normal was a switch you could flip. The hostess led us to the back where the lighting was soft and the tables were close enough to hear other people's lives. Our friends were already there, 2 couples we'd known for years. Familiar faces, familiar hugs that landed a little off. "Hey, man," one of the husbands said, clapping my shoulder too firmly, the kind of touch men use when they don't know what to say. Tiffany slid into her seat like she owned the room. She smiled big, complimented the server's earrings, and asked everyone about their week like she was hosting a show. She didn't mention the party. She didn't mention the video. She acted like the last 48 hours were a rumor she'd outgrown. I watched the others. They laughed when they were supposed to, but their eyes kept drifting. Toward me, toward Tiffany, then away. Nobody wanted to be the one to say it out loud. Halfway through appetizers, one of the wives leaned in and said, "So, I heard Mark is transferring." That got everyone's attention. "Yeah," the other husband said. "Out of state. Fast too. Like, sudden." I kept my face neutral. "That's what I heard." "She pushed for it," the wife added, lowering her voice. His wife. Apparently she was furious. Tiffany's fork paused for a fraction of a second, then kept moving. "People overreact," she said lightly. No one laughed. I didn't look at her. I didn't give her the gift of an argument at the table. I just sat there while the room's discomfort thickened. When the check came, Tiffany grabbed it too quickly, like buying dinner could buy control. She smiled at everyone again. "We should do this more." Outside, the cold hit hard. We were walking toward the car when her phone lit up. She angled it away out of habit, but not fast enough. A name flashed across the screen. Mark Reynolds. And under it, the preview of a message too familiar, too private for just a dance. Last night was hard to stop thinking about. "Call me when you can." Tiffany's thumb hovered, ready to hide it. I stopped walking. She stopped too, but only because I did. I looked at her, calm as stone. So how long has this been going on? Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked around the parking lot like she wanted the world to disappear. For the first time since the party, she didn't have a speech ready. And that silence told me more than any confession could. Inside the house, Tiffany moved like a person trying to outrun a question. "It's not what you think," she said, already defensive. I set my keys on the counter carefully. "Then explain it." She crossed her arms. "Mark texts everyone. He's transferring. He's stressed." That message was private. I cut in. Not loud. Final. And familiar. Her eyes flashed. "You're twisting it." I nodded once like I'd heard her. "Okay, let's stick to what's real." I pulled my phone out and opened the video again. The clip. The dance. The angle where her hand rested on him like it belonged there. I didn't shove it in her face. I just set it on the counter between us and hit play. She looked away. "That video doesn't show anything." "It shows enough," I said. "And my coworkers saw it live." She scoffed, but she wasn't confident anymore. "So what, you're building a dossier on me?" The word hit like she'd practiced it. Like she'd already told Brooke and Susan I was obsessed and controlling. And this was the label she wanted to stick on me. I didn't bite. "I'm building clarity," I said, "because you're trying to make me doubt what's right in front of me." She stepped closer, voice sharpening. "You are insecure, Adam. You always." "No," I held up a hand. Calm stop sign. "We're not doing history revision. We're talking about Mark. We're talking about you choosing him for attention in front of my entire workplace." She opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed, then went back to the only weapon she had, blame. "You're punishing me," she said, "over a dance, over one text." "One text you didn't want me to see," I said. That was the moment I stopped expecting honesty. Not because I'm cynical, because I'm trained. When something matters at work, I don't argue based on vibes. I document, I verify, I protect the record. So that night, after she went upstairs and slammed a door like that counted as an argument, I opened a folder on my laptop. Timeline, screenshots, names, dates. I saved the video. I saved every message that had come in from coworkers. I made notes who reached out, what they said, what they witnessed. I didn't ask anyone to spy. I asked simple questions with simple answers. "Did you see it? Do you have a photo from the party? If you do, can you forward it?" Couple people did. Not because they liked drama, because they'd seen the disrespect too. Then I read. Not forums full of screaming opinions, clean articles and professional write-ups about emotional affairs, boundary crossing, and the patterns that follow. The same pattern kept showing up like a bad signature. Minimize the act. Shame the reaction. Recruit allies. Rewrite the story. Tiffany had already hit all four. By midnight, my disappointment had turned into something steadier. Not hatred. Not revenge fantasies. A decision taking shape, quiet, methodical, and real. Because if she needed me to deny my own eyes to keep the marriage intact, then it wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a trap with a smiling face. Tiffany waited until after Olivia was asleep. That told me everything. She wanted the house quiet, controlled, no interruptions, no witnesses except the one she planned to make me. She walked into the living room with her phone in her hand and that set look on her face, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "I talked to Brooke and my mom," she said. I didn't react. I sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees, eyes steady. "And," I asked, "and they think you're being controlling." She said it like she was reading a verdict. "They think you're punishing me because you can't handle attention that isn't yours." There it was. Not concerned. No remorse. A label handed down by people who weren't in the room and didn't pay the price. I nodded slowly. "Anything else they think?" Tiffany's voice sharpened. "They think you're trying to intimidate me with this whole evidence thing. Like you're building a case to make me look bad." I pulled my phone out and set it face down on the coffee table. Then I tapped the screen and started recording. Quiet, obvious, no sneaking. protection, not games. Her eyes locked onto it. Are you recording me? Yes, I said, because you're not here to fix this. You're here to manage perception. That's insane, she snapped. You're proving my point. No, I said, calm. You're proving mine. She took a breath and launched again. Faster now. I didn't cheat. I danced. I talked. You're acting like a dictator, Adam. Like I'm not allowed to. You're allowed to do whatever you want, I said. And I'm allowed to respond to what you do. She scoffed. So what, you're leaving me? Over your pride. I held her gaze. Over your disrespect. Over lying. Over the way you brought your family in like a jury. Her face tightened. You're really doing this. I already spoke to a family lawyer, I said. David Chen. Today. The change in her was immediate. Not sadness. Not guilt. Fear, clean and selfish. You can't just, she started. I can, I said. And I will. I let the words sit between us, heavy and final. This isn't a marriage where truth has to fight for oxygen, I said. I'm done living in that. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was, because the man who used to argue for the relationship was gone. In his place was a man who'd finally accepted what she'd been showing him the whole time. David Chen didn't talk like a motivational speaker. He talked like a man who understood outcomes. He walked me through the steps, the risks, the stupid mistakes men make when they're emotional. Then we moved. The papers were served on a Tuesday afternoon. Tiffany was home. I wasn't. That was deliberate. When I walked in that evening, she was sitting at the kitchen table with the packet in front of her like it was radioactive. You did this, she said. I set my keys down. Same calm motion as always. I followed through. Her eyes were glossy, but her voice tried to stay sharp. You're really going to tear our family apart over? No, I said. You started tearing it apart when you made disrespect a hobby. I'm just not pretending anymore. She stood up fast. So what now? You think you can just take Olivia from me? I think Olivia deserves stability, I said. And I'm not fighting in front of her. Everything goes through attorneys. That word, attorneys, changed her posture. Took the fight out of her because she couldn't bully a calendar. That night, the house shifted. Not colder, stranger. Like we were roommates stuck in a lease neither of us wanted. I opened a separate bank account the next morning and redirected my paycheck. I documented the balances, the bills, the usual monthly rhythm. Not to be petty because courts don't care about drama. They care about numbers and patterns. Communication became text-only unless it involved Olivia. Short, neutral, time-stamped. Tiffany started making calls. Fast, frantic. You could hear it in the way she paced. She'd assumed the marriage was permanent enough to play with. Now she was learning that permanence has paperwork. A few days later, she tried a different voice. Softer, scared. Adam, she said in the hallway. Can we please just talk like adults? We are, I said. Adults use structure when emotions can't be trusted. Her mouth tightened. David Chun, she said, like the name tasted bad. I didn't correct her. I didn't gloat. I just walked past her toward Olivia's room, because the only thing I cared about winning was my daughter's peace. And for the first time, Tiffany understood this wasn't a fight she could charm her way out of. It had rules now, deadlines, consequences, and she was already behind. Dr. Elena Martinez's office smelled like clean paper and quiet rules. No courtroom drama, no raised voices, just a professional with a notepad and a calm face that didn't reward performance. I sat straight, hands relaxed, and waited. Tiffany sat too, but she couldn't stay still. Crossing and uncrossing her legs, tapping her nails against her phone like she was resisting the fact that this wasn't her stage. Dr. Martinez started simple. Tell me about Olivia's routine. I didn't talk about Tiffany. I talked about our daughter. School mornings, I said. Breakfast, drop-off, homework time, bedtime. Who does what, when? Her pediatrician, her teacher, the names of her friends. What calms her down when she's overwhelmed? Dr. Martinez nodded and wrote. No reaction, just intake. Then she turned to Tiffany. How do you support that routine? Tiffany's answer started with a sigh. I love my daughter. This whole thing is just so unfair. Dr. Martinez didn't bite. I hear that. What does a typical weekday look like when Olivia is with you? Tiffany blinked like the question was rude. I mean, she's fine. She's a kid. We do stuff. I'm not a scheduled robot like Adam. I kept my face neutral. Let the words hang exactly as she said them. Dr. Martinez asked follow-ups, school name, teacher, bedtime, homework. Tiffany floated around each one with feelings instead of facts. Then it shifted. Tiffany leaned forward, voice tighter. This is all because of one party. People are punishing me. Adam is making me out to be. Dr. Martinez raised a hand gently. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to assess what's best for Olivia. Can you acknowledge how your actions affected the family system? Tiffany's mouth tightened. I didn't do anything. He overreacted. There it was. Clean. Final. No ownership. I didn't smile. I didn't look relieved. I just felt my stomach sink in that quiet way it does when you realize someone will never meet you where truth lives. Weeks later, the recommendation came back. Me as primary custodian, Tiffany with supervised visits until counseling and demonstrated consistency. Relief hit first because Olivia would have structure. Then grief, because winning still meant my daughter's world had been split by an adult who couldn't say, I hurt you. I'm sorry. 6 months after the ruling, my life runs on a schedule that actually means something. Olivia's backpack hangs on the same hook every day. Shoes lined up by the door. Homework gets done at the kitchen table with a glass of water and the same pencil cup she likes. Friday nights are pizza and a movie. Sunday afternoons are laundry, meal prep, and her picking out clothes for Monday like it's a serious job. She's steadier now, less jumpy, fewer stomach aches before school. Her teachers stopped sending those just checking in emails. The house feels safe because it's predictable. Tiffany gets her time supervised with rules attached. She hates the rules. You can hear it in the way she talks. Like the system is bullying her instead of protecting a kid. Sometimes she tries a new approach. Can't we just move past it? She'll say, voice soft like it's an apology without the words. I keep it simple. There's nothing to move past until you stop minimizing what you did. She doesn't like that answer. She never has. Mark transferred. His life got rearranged by his wife's boundaries and his own stupidity. I don't know what happened between him and Tiffany after that. I don't care. The point was never Mark. Mark was just the mirror that showed me what my wife was willing to do when she thought I'd tolerate it. People at work stopped bringing it up. The clip disappeared into the internet's landfill. But the lesson stayed where it belonged, inside me. I used to think marriage collapsed because someone wanted to feel desired. Now I know it collapses when someone demands desire without loyalty, attention without accountability, and forgiveness without truth. It wasn't one dance. It was choosing ego over family, again and again, until consequences showed up with a signature line. And when they did, I didn't beg. I built a home my daughter could breathe in. Then I closed the door on the version of my life that required me to accept disrespect just to say I was married.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.